In this video, we're going to break down how I tattooed this realistic eyeball in my client. I'm going to give you guys a step-by-step process of how exactly I achieved this look. So let's get right into it. So when it comes to workflow and the order in which I tattoo things when I'm tattooing realism, I always like to start with the darkest areas first, and typically that ends up being line work. So in this instance, I have the outline of the center of the eyeball and the eyelashes, and that's about it in terms of hard lines on this tattoo as of right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my 3-round liner and just go and kind of freehand all these little eyelashes that you see on the top and the bottom. And when you're tattooing eyelashes like these, you want them to come across as very natural, and so the way you do that is by starting in the skin and slowly lifting your needle out of the skin the further into the eyelash you get, so that you get a sharper ending than you had when you first started the eyelash. And so by using that whipping motion and slowly taking the needle out of the skin as you tattoo each individual eyelash, that ensures that you get a natural looking eyelash. So I'm going to start by doing all of those, and once those are done, I'm going to go through, and you can thicken some of them, not all of them. I've noticed when you're tattooing realism, one of the best ways to make something look realistic, and I think a lot of people overlook this, is by making things not uniform. So if every eyelash is the same thickness, the same length, it looks too perfect. And when you're tattooing realism, things in real life are not perfect, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So when you're tattooing, don't try to get everything to be exactly symmetrical or perfect. Make it look natural, because no eye in real life, every eyelash is the exact same size. So let your tattoos reflect that, and you will see a huge improvement in the overall look of your tattoos and how natural they come across when you're done. So once you outline everything that you need to outline, which is anything where you're going to be bringing black all the way up to the line, we can move on to the next step. And speaking of that, you don't want to hard outline something if you're not going to be shading black all the way up to that line further into the tattoo process. Because if you use black ink and you line, say, let's find an example here. Say you outlined the highlight of the eye in all black, and as you can see here, while this tattoo is fresh, because that's when I took the picture, I did outline the highlight of the eye, but I did not use black because, for example, all this space right here is not going to be black. So if you tattoo the outline black and you don't bring black all the way up to that, the outline's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and that is going to take away from the realistic aspect of your tattoo. So only use black and hardline things if you know you're going to be bringing black shading up to the line later in the tattoo. So now that all the line work is done, we're going to move on to some of the shading, and I always like to start with the dark tones first and work my way up to the lighter tones, because I like using black as a good reference point for how dark the rest of the tattoo should be. So I get a nice black point, and then I just build the tones based off of that darkest part of the tattoo, which in this case is going to be the pupil, of course. So this area right above the eye, right where the eyelid starts, I'm going to be whipping black down from. So everything, this line right here that I just drew is going to be the start of where I shade, and I'm going to be shading in this direction down. For this particular area, I'm going to want to use a small mag needle. So in this case, the smallest mag that I use is a 7 curve mag. I find that it's very easy to be precise and get into areas that a larger mag can't fit into so easily. So I'm going along the eyelid, and I'm whipping black down. So what this does is it's creating a shadow and it's pushing the eyeball back so that the eyelid appears to be in front of the eye, which in reality is the case. So that's what I'm doing here. Once I do that, I look for any other areas where I'm going to use black again, and there's going to be another area on the bottom eyelid. So that line is my reference point, and then once again, I'm shading down. Change the color here for you guys actually. I'm going to be shading down away from that line. And you want to make sure each stroke of your needle, you're starting at that line and whipping away. You don't want to be starting some portions of the eyelid here and then others lower. You want to stay on that line, right? So once you've done that, you have a good base, you have a good framework to work off of. You're getting the dark areas out of the way first. So once all your black is done, we're going to switch tones. So red is going to be anywhere where I used black ink. So we have the black whipped down there, and then I think where I left off, we had just switched into the second darkest tone. So we're going to switch to blue for that. And now at this point, I'm looking, where do I want to add this second darkest tone? And I'm going to first start here. I'm going to create this line using this tone, and I'm not using a liner to create this line. I'm using my 7 curve mag, and I'm just whipping this dark tone off of this. And then I'm also going to extend the tone that I started creating with the black here out just a little bit past where I originally had whipped with the black ink. So this is just going to smooth it out a little bit. Now, is there anywhere else where I might want to use this second darkest tone? And the answer is going to be yes. First, I did whip black off of that. I had to erase that. Okay, so there's black already whipped down off that top part, and once again, I'm in my second tone, so I'm gonna wanna whip this down, extending, just like I did down here, but here, just to start that smooth gradation. So, I have that tone there, and I'm also going to want to use it at the top of these eyelashes, or the eyelid. So I whip that tone up off there. Okay. Now we're gonna save the inside of the eye for last, since that's where the most of the detail is. So I'll show you guys how exactly I did the inside of the eye at the very end of the tattoo. Right now we're gonna keep it moving. We're switching to our mid-tone. Our mid-tone is going to be yellow, actually. So now I'm looking for where I want to add my mid-tone, and I'm going to start here. I'm going to whip up off this same line that we were whipping down off of. I'm just using that to start, and I'm just whipping up instead. Now when I'm tattooing stuff like this, I'm imagining these folds to be kind of round shaped, so that's why I imagine where my light source is coming for, and I usually put the darkest tones on the bottom, and I work my way up towards the lighter area where that area is pointed towards the light source. So, and that kind of helps give things that round look if they need it, or if that's what they are like in real life. So I continue using my mid-tone. I whip it off of this dark tone that I previously put in the skin. And you guys can see it's really just all about layering. You know, you start with your dark tone and you just work your way down through your wash set, and you just continue building tones, and you just continue blending them out or fully saturating them, whatever is needed. Like for example, this area all in here is going to be fully saturated. So just keep that in mind going forward throughout the rest of this tattoo. Okay. Now next I'm going to use my mid-tone to create this line right here. I don't whip off super far, I just do a quick short little brush. And I also continue my mid-tone coming down from there as well. And here I kind of create a little channel here, and I whip my mid-tone here, 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 but I whip it further here. Okay. Now, like I said, it's all about just layering tones on top of each other. So the last thing I'm going to do with my mid-tone is I'm going to just use it a little bit to kind of blend this dark area out into the skin a little bit better. Because sometimes it can look a little harsh when you have black blending directly into skin, or your dark tone blending directly into skin. So the more tones you use without overworking the skin, the smoother your gradation is going to be typically. So I might go up and use this on the top as well. Okay. We're now switching to our light tone, our second to last ink cup, and here I'm going to start some saturation. So I'm going to leave room on this eyelid right here for a highlight, but besides that, this entire eyelid is getting saturated. And I'm not using a whipping motion, I'm actually using a brushing motion. So I'm moving the needle back and forth like a pendulum, just right up in here, saturating the entire area. Clean that up a little bit for you guys. So once that eyelid is done, I now move on to this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to saturate this entire eyelid. I might leave room for a little highlight there, but I'm saturating the rest of that. And then I'm going inside here and I'm whipping that light tone off. It's important to figure out your dark areas and your light areas, because for example, this whole area right in here is going to be the lightest part of the tattoo, and so I want to avoid using dark tones all the way around. So I might use a dark tone up here and up here and up here and up here, but as far as this area in here, I want to avoid using dark tones just so that I maintain that high level of contrast, because as you can see, we end up using more dark tones in the center of the eyeball. And if we put dark tones all up in here as well, then it just wouldn't look right and you wouldn't get as nice contrast. So I continue using this light tone and I just whip it down, and I also whip it off of the eyeball, the center of the eye, here and there. So as you can see, it should be coming together pretty nicely. So now we can transition into our last ink cup. This is going to be the lightest tone that we have, and this I use to just go over and I saturate everything, including highlights that aren't exactly the brightest point of the tattoo. So for example, this area that we left right here, I'm saturating the hell out of that. Anywhere that's I see open skin all up in the eyeball here, I'm saturating. I'm saturating this, I'm saturating that. So you're leaving these highlights knowing that you're gonna go and saturate them with your lightest tone. And I just found that it's very helpful to saturate the entire tattoo because it allows you to be intentional with what is actually a highlight. Which in this case, this is the highlight. We have a bit of a natural highlight around here that I did not put white in because it didn't need it. but it basically just allows you to be selective with what you're actually highlighting in the tattoo, and it just gives it a more realistic and complete look overall when you do that, when you don't over apply the white, when you maybe not even apply white at all in some cases if the skin doesn't need it. But anywhere, if you still see open skin in your tattoo here, all along these lower eyelids, saturate it. Get rid of the open skin there. You don't need it there. Now, the main portion of the eye is now done, so we're going to transfer over to the center here. So first thing we're going to do is pull out our 3-round liner again, and we're going to dip into black ink. And all I'm doing here is creating just kind of like a pattern design type texture on the eye. And inside these lines that I'm creating, you're just saturating it black. So you fill all these in black, you work your way around here, and if you haven't already, you fill in the pupil. Make sure you leave room for your highlights, and you whip your black down a little bit further here and all the way into there. So once you're done with all the black in the inner part of the eye, you're going to switch over to your second darkest tone, and you're going to pull out your 7 curve mag, and you're just going to whip off of this area. You're starting at the base of this line, so it's okay to tattoo over what you just tattooed in black. This dark tone is dark enough that it's going to conceal the detail a little bit, but not completely cover it. So these details are going to be subtle, which is key when you're tattooing realism. Not every detail needs to stand out and pop. A lot of stuff you want to kind of be very subtle, and you want it to almost blend in with the other tones. That's what kind of helps make the tattoo look natural. So you're whipping this dark tone off basically all around, okay? And then the next thing we're gonna do, using the side of our mag, using the edge of our mag, we're going to create these little designs, and we're going to whip away so that the darkest part is here at the base, and we whip out. So once you do that, we're going to switch over to our mid-tone, and we're going to continue whipping. Now this time we do have to be careful because I want to leave negative space around these designs just to add some more contrast. So you can whip this medium tone up, you just can't go beyond these lines that I just created because you want to maintain that natural highlight. So you whip the medium tones up and also down into the eye. We are almost there. We're going to switch over to our light tone, and we're going to whip this off of the pupil a little bit. And we're also going to saturate everything inside the eye that is not this little natural highlight that we created. So the entire eye should be saturated except for this little highlight and here that we created, and then of course that highlight. So once you do that, the tattoo is pretty much done. All we're going to do is go back and add some little blood vessel texture looking things to the eyeball. So for that, I opt to use my mid-tone because we've already shaded in all of this with light and lightest tones. So if we put black for these details, it's going to stick out too much. It's not going to look set into the tattoo. So I use a mid-tone because a mid-tone is dark enough to stand out but light enough to blend in a little bit. So you just go and you kind of just draw these random squiggly things. Like I said, different sizes, different shapes when you're doing details in realistic pieces, because uniformity when it comes to details is not the way to go when you're tattooing realism. You want things to look different and natural. So really just draw random squiggles when you're drawing these little blood vessels and you'll be good to go. So that will wrap this tutorial up. I hope you guys were able to gain some valuable information from it, and this tutorial was focused more on the tattoo process and the methodology behind me tattooing this piece. So if you guys want a more detailed breakdown as far as techniques go, or you guys are struggling with a certain technique, drop them in the comment section down below and I can make a video to help you guys out in that aspect as well. But that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Drop a like, drop a comment, and I will catch you guys in the next one.